Hi, I'm really glad you're here. Today, I want to talk about a moment that usually comes before healing. A moment many people don't talk about. I know I wasn't aware of that moment when I began my own process. It's that moment when the realization finally hits that's what been holding you all along stops working. It stops sticking. It stops holding. This moment doesn't always come in a dramatic way. It doesn't always come all at once. Sometimes it comes quietly. And for some, it comes the complete opposite. For me, it came quietly. It started settling in and disrupting everything I had built that felt safe and stable, piece by piece. When that dismantling began, the pieces I thought were strategically, cohesively, and even strongly secured to protect me were suddenly exposing me. The strength I had lived from and carried so proudly started not to feel like strength anymore. The way I had been managing life stopped giving me peace. And I finally had to admit something deep inside of me, that this wasn't healing. It was hiding. And in that honest moment, when reality hit me like a ton of bricks, I knew that the real journey finally had begun. Not in my effort to rebuild, but in raw honesty. Because my wholeness couldn't begin until my pretending ended. I didn't realize it back then, but I have lived there for a very long time. I had normalized the fractures underneath my life. As long as I stayed busy enough, useful enough, spiritual enough, I could keep things standing. I had mastered how to smile while slowly and quietly coming undone. I learned how to pray without breathing, how to serve without resting. But exhaustion has a way of exposing what efforts hide. And slowly what I had propped up started to weaken. Not collapse, just not hold. That breaking became very real to me when I began my transition out of the military. Something in me slowly started to break. The version of me that had lived in structure and endurance for decades slowly started slipping away. And I didn't know how to respond to that. I was so overwhelmed because the structure was slowly being ripped away from me. So I replaced it because I didn't know how to just sit there and watch it slip away. I didn't know how to adapt. And I didn't want anyone to see that I was struggling. So I did what I did best. I made sure I was still leading, still parenting, and still managing. Even though I didn't have a schedule anymore, I was still performing. I didn't know how to fall apart gently. So I made sure I didn't fall apart at all. I retreated. I closed everyone off. I shut the doors. I lay down in my room, dark, with the worship music playing and everything else turned off. I called it rest, but I knew it wasn't rest. I was drowning. Depression was slowly beginning to creep in. And then it swallowed me alive. And I hated myself for it, for not being able to hold it together, for losing grip on what I thought I had mastered, for becoming the very thing that I had taught other women not to be. And yet, there I was, feeling like a failure. And that season, my mind was a war zone. But even there, God was present. And I don't mean that in a poetic way, a way that I used to quote. This wasn't something I was just saying anymore. It was something I was living. I was being sustained by God while I was slowly unraveling. And that wasn't a verse. That was survival. He didn't rush me. He didn't fix me. And he didn't shame me. He didn't disappear when I couldn't pray, when I couldn't cry, and when I couldn't even explain what was going on inside of me. He stayed. And what I learned firsthand was this. Sometimes mercy doesn't pull you out. Sometimes it just keeps you from going under. And sometimes that has to be enough. When I finally started looking at what was breaking inside of me, all I can see was wreckage. Wreckage I had never seen before because I was too busy. Trust issues, exhaustion, grief, identity loss, disappointment, and that's only to name a few. All I could think of was that wreckage became more exposing. And I started thinking, this is just too much to fix, too much for me to face, too much to invite anyone into this mess. I was so ashamed. I was embarrassed. So I did what I always do. I managed it. I cleaned the Rubble just enough to move it around, just enough to function, just enough to deal with it, until one day a question formed in me that I couldn't shake. Why do I keep repeating this cycle when I know the truth and I really want healing? What am I doing wrong? And sitting there in this rubble with dust in my face, just tired of being tired, another question surfaced. What if what I've been calling healing, I've just been hiding? And these words rose in me louder than anything else. God cannot heal what I refuse to bring to him. And nothing in me argued that, because I knew it was true. That moment didn't heal me, but it woke me up. Even with that awakening, I didn't know how to rebuild. I just knew I couldn't go back to pretending. And that's when I started to understand something scripture has always shown us. Awakening rarely feels like fire. It feels like a small flicker, a thin line of light under a door you're not sure you want to open, but you know there's something on the other side of it. The Bible calls that place lament. The prophet Jeremiah lived there. He didn't sanitize his pain. He didn't rush to hope. He sat in devastation and named it before God. And scripture treats that as sacred. Lament is not the absence of faith. It is faith refusing to hide. No one ever taught me how to lament. I was just taught how to pray, how to endure, how to stay strong, but not how to fall apart open in God's presence. And now I can see that is where awakening actually happens. Not when we pull ourselves together, but when we stop holding ourselves together. So maybe you can relate to some of my story. Maybe nothing has fully fallen apart for you, but nothing feels whole either. Maybe you're exhausted in ways rest hasn't touched. Maybe survival has been working for you, but it isn't living. And if that's you, I want you to hear this clearly. That moment you stop numbing and start noticing and start naming, that process is sacred. It's not weak. It's not a failure. It's awakening. So at this stage, you don't have to know how to rebuild yet. You don't have to map the journey. You don't have to fix the rubble. You only have to be willing to say, I want more than survival. Because that willingness is where healing actually begins. And it never starts with rebuilding. It starts with seeing. And seeing always begins with him. Before we go, we just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And thank you for trusting us enough to step in this process with you. From all of us at Trauma Uncovered, we're very grateful you've joined us. And we're honored to be able to walk this journey with you. If this space has already felt meaningful to you, we'd love for you to stay connected. You can subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any of the upcoming segments. And you can follow us on all of our social media pages. All of the links are in the description and comments below. We will be sharing encouragement, scriptures, the reflection questions from this week, and details about our live conversations there. We hope to see you soon.